the AP poll came out, and there have been some seismic shifts, especially given the fact that number one, Alabama just lost to Vanderbilt. Who else in the top 10 lost? We had
Missouri,
well,
Tennessee,
Tennessee.
Missouri, Tennessee,
Tennessee.
yeah.
And
Miami should have
Michigan.
lost. Miami should have lost.
Gosh.
The officials
Miami
didn't
should have
save them.
lost.
Saved
All
them
right.
2 weeks in a row.
Yep.
ACC needs to be investigated.
But now,
Well,
okay.
If they don't save Miami, who will they have in the playoffs?
That's exactly why they need to be investigated. That's why they're
Well,
doing
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
So let's get into the conversation then. The AP poll. I know, Justin, why don't you kick us off, because you said you had a major rant you wanted to give about the AP poll. So take it away.
And I came into this, understanding the AP pollsters had their hands full with how this weekend went down. But my gripe is this. There's a few things that doesn't make sense to me. Navy and Army, first off, how are they not ranked? Okay. Army, I can get along with. The Army, I'm a Navy guy. I'm a Navy veteran, so Army, it's fine if they're not ranked. But why is Navy not ranked? And then why does Vanderbilt climb into the 4 receiving votes when they're 2-2 just because they beat Alabama? I don't understand kind of what the rhyme or reason is around some of this polling, or why things are the way they are, or Michigan with 2 losses, still being in the rankings, when I'm just going to say Nebraska's the second one out. USC's right ahead of us, but we got 1 loss to a ranked opponent in overtime. But yeah, I got some gripes with the AP pollster, but I was just curious everybody else's thoughts on that.
You guys want to go ahead and pitch in? Go for it.
And I've always thought the AP poll was total crap, but I'll let Peter and Rob take a more intellectual approach.
My thoughts are, how does Miami keep climbing when they've literally been bailed out by the refs 2 weeks in a row, and they literally had to come back against the Cal Bears? I mean, I don't. What have the Cal Bears that have been relevant since, didn't Aaron Rodgers go there?
Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Jackson.
Yep, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Jackson. So I think they're too high at number 6. I think they're still frauds. You can't buy a winning culture, and that's what they're trying to do. Mario Cristobal he's not a good coach. It showed over the last couple of years. I think they play Clemson, right?
I believe so.
Their luck runs out against Clemson.
Yeah.
They're not beating Clemson. No way.
So I'm saying this as
Agreed.
I'm saying this as a Michigan fan. Michigan should not be ranked right now. I mean, a blowout loss to Texas. I mean, I get it. They're number 1. And then a loss to Washington. Really? So, and yet they're 24. I feel like the only reason the AP poll put Michigan at 24 is because they didn't want to admit that they made a mistake putting them at 11 last week.
Or another factor in this that I hate is the preseason rankings, which are pointless, directly affect how the AP poll, goes down throughout the season as well.
Yes.
Has a big impact on it for sure.
Well, that's been Mark Rogers' problem with the AP poll. And that's why he comes out with the top 25 that actually makes sense, because he bases it on performance rather than wishful thinking at the beginning of the season. Go ahead, Peter.
What week should we start the AP poll? Because I agree with your line of thought, Justin. I mean, clearly has an effect, but should it be week 8 where we start, or maybe when the college football starts, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, that's the problem. It's a complex problem. I didn't bring a solution to, but I would imagine that would be like the best. I think the best thing would just be to kind of around the same time where they do the college football playoff poll, or even I think coaches poll, was fine or whatever. But I just think there should be more of a sample size before we get media writers, voting on which teams are the best, and that would save us the whole problem of dealing with these preseason rankings. I get it because it's something to talk about with the preseason rankings, but still, I just think that throws everything in, and all this stuff affects, teams facing a ranked opponent is a lot different than not facing one. If you got a team who's 27 versus a team who's 23. That's a few rankings, but that a ranked opponent, matters in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and where do you?
Oh, go ahead.
And yeah, I mean, you going back to what you were saying about Vanderbilt. I mean, Alabama only dropped 6 spots.
Right.
Yeah.
Michigan dropped 14 spots.
Yep.
Alabama dropped 6 spots.
Yep.
You lose to Vandy. I don't care what you did the week before. Get out the top 10, dude.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I think happened to Alabama, and here's where I'm going with this. So back in 2000, I think it was 17, when Ohio State came back against Penn State in like the late third quarter to win the game. That was a really emotional win. It drained them, and then the next week they got completely blasted by Iowa. I think that Alabama was coming off an emotional win against Georgia, having to come back, and then they completely blew it against a team who they shouldn't have blown it against.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I want to know why LSU is at number 13.
Why are they climbing back up?
Yeah, why are they climbing back up? All they've got they've got Nicholls, South Carolina, UCLA, and South Alabama. And they almost lost to South Carolina too. And then the only loss they do have is to USC, and it looked really good at the time, but now USC is crap.
Which was the entire basis around me picking Michigan when they played USC, is because like everybody was hyped off of that,
Mm-hmm.
But
so all of a sudden these teams that we thought weren't very good are actually very good, and these teams that we thought were very good are actually really bad. I mean, the entire SEC is upside down right now because you've got Alabama dropping down to 7. Georgia is only at 5 right now. I don't know that that's an only, but Texas, first year in the SEC, is driving that conference right now.
Yep.
Which is just hilarious to me. And then Clemson somehow or another is at number 10, despite the blowout loss to Georgia. I don't know. This doesn't make sense. Yeah, and Clemson's got App State, NC State, Stanford, and Florida State. Where's the quality win here?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Nowhere. SEC bias all over.
Well, Mark G here is saying that LSU is there because they're in the SEC.
Yeah, SEC bias. Yeah.
But where does the SEC bias fit in if we've got Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State in 2, 3, and 4?
Well, where else are you going to put them? I mean, you can't really argue too many teams ahead of them, can you?
Yeah, no.
I wouldn't think so, but I mean, if there's bias to it, I guess. Are you saying the bias is what's keeping Alabama then in the top 8?
I think they try to keep them a little bit higher off of their losses than they. I feel like the pollsters make it a little bit easier for them to rebound because they don't get dropped quite as much. I do feel like there's a little bit of, and it could be just because of recency bias of those teams being so good lately, and people knowing how good those teams are. But I just don't feel like they get dropped as much as they should after the losses. I don't think necessarily. I don't think it's as obvious enough of them trying to, bump them up ahead of like undefeated teams they should be ahead of. It's more so I just think they help them out by not dropping them as much, so that way it's a lot easier for them to recover from their ranking.
Well, I mean, Tennessee's a prime example of that. I mean, they just lost to an unranked opponent in Arkansas. Sam Pittman's he just saved his job with that W, but they only dropped 4 spots. It's like dude, they were unranked, and they scored 14 points.
That's crazy.
Like, get out of the top 10 again.
Yep. Agreed.
Well, when I looked at the rankings too, I was kind of shocked when I saw Iowa State at 11.
Yeah.
Undefeated, Matt Campbell.
Undefeated, but yeah.
But not impressive.
Navy needs to be in over Michigan, though. I won't. I will argue for Navy before I argue for Nebraska. They deserve to be in.
Yeah. Notre Dame and Iowa State are
bucket list
tied.
game for me right there. Navy, Army, and Philly. Oh, that'd be awesome.
Oh, can't wait.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
I think Indiana should be higher than 18.
You do?
They're looking really good this season.
I think it's strength of schedule right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my thing about Indiana, and I'll talk about this, of course, when we get to the preview of that game next week, but Indiana, I just don't know how they'll handle physicality because Northwestern went blow for blow with them and ran out of steam at the end. That game was back and forth.
That is true. Yeah,
it was tight.
And Maryland's the toughest team they've played, and I think Maryland put up 24. So they're explosive, but can they be physical? Like, can they take those body blows from a Big Ten team and still be able to run that explosive offense when they're getting beat up a little bit?
I'm excited to see that too, for real.
Yeah. Who's their first test?
Their schedule is nice. It's pretty nice.
Us after the bye week.
Oh yeah. So Nebraska and then Washington, Michigan State, and then maybe Michigan. Maybe Michigan would be a test, at least the defense anyway. Maybe
the physicality.
Yeah, for physicality. Sam Hartman's looking downfield for Adrian.
Carter almost has a one-handed catch.
Almost.